Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For just the fourth time since 1969, the Pittsburgh Steelers are searching for a new head coach. Also, Kevin Patullo really leaned into the offensive part of offensive coordinator, so the Eagles let him walk. And they're in the market yet again. Anthony Davis is injured again, but how much more are the Mavericks willing to put up with, and who's willing to trade for him?
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Pittsburgh Steelers' season ended in inglorious fashion on a Monday night, and within 24 hours, Mike Tomlin had decided he needs a break at the very least, resigning as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers in the building, and also in the building in Pittsburgh. So you got to know Mike Tomlin over the years such that you can do that. Why do you think this moment was the right one for Tomlin to make this move?
You know, there's more and more reports are coming out to suggest that this was a premeditated move. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to just the way that this playoff game played out. And so, you know, I talked about with colleagues here, you know, there's certain things that add up. You know, Mike Tomlin, when he came to Pittsburgh, Peter, I was in high school. This is a guy who, you know, his kids were in the elementary schools that I used to walk past and like, you know, play Little League baseball and basketball against. And so those kids are now out of college. You know, they've moved on. You know, him and his wife have an empty nest. And so, you know, I think that this was a decision where it's like, hey, man, like this has been a whole big chapter of our lives. I love what I've done here. But, you know, maybe he was just like, you know, I'm going to give this one last ride. I get to do it with, you know, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Aaron Rodgers. And yeah, there's certain limitations, but let's see how this year goes. And, you know, I think that they won a division. They got back to the playoffs, and a lot of people didn't think they could do that. They thought, a lot of people predicted this to be his first losing season of his 19-year career, and they didn't let that happen. And they got to the playoffs, and sure, they got smoked in the final minutes because it was 7-6 going into the fourth and 10-6, you know, in the middle of the fourth. But I think that this was Mike just saying, like, hey, you know what? Let's take a step back and see how things are. And I think it's going to be interesting, Peter, because, you know, around that same time in high school, for me, I remember Bill Cowher, you know, going to CBS and thinking, along with everyone else, he's just doing this for like a year or two and he'll be back. And Bill Cowher's still doing TV, man. So I wonder if Mike Tomlin could be
something
different
about those Steelers coaches. They're like monogamous. They like to do one thing for a long time.
And that's it. And, you know, but I wonder, because Mike Tomlin has been a competitive junkie in his time. Like he instituted the whole 7 shots drill where at the beginning of every practice, offense, defense, 2-yard line, 7 straight plays, who can win the most? He lives for that stuff. He lives to develop guys. And there's a part of me that feels like he's going to come back to this at some point, and that he still has 2 years left on his Steelers contract, which means if he did, he'd be a trade target.
And that was exactly the situation with Sean Payton. Sean Payton ends up going over to TV and then comes back. There has to be the whole negotiating and all that stuff. Okay, so let me ask you this. If this Steelers team was like loaded with young players and they still have the same record and have the same exit because they, you know, the quarterback situation, all that stuff, does he still make this decision, do you think?
It depends on which young players they had, because they have some young players that are playing really well.
But if they had like baby TJ Watt, like if, you know,
or if they had a franchise quarterback, if they had, you know, a Ben Roethlisberger in his 3rd year, I do think that this could have been he sticks around because, you know, they had got Joey Porter Jr. hasn't allowed a touchdown in 2 seasons, and he's been on playing on fire. Derek Harmon, a phenomenal rookie year. You know, look at the rookies that made play. That Jack Sawyer had a sack strip fumble. Keanu Benton, a 3rd-year player, the sack strip fumble. Y.A. Black recovering a fumble. You know, the offensive line had a rough playoff game, but they had a great season despite you know, several injuries that plagued them throughout the year. There's a lot of young cores that the Steelers are developing and that Mike Tomlin has had very much a hand in. But I do think that if there was a solution at quarterback in a long-term sense, maybe he considers sticking around, because that's the thing the Steelers haven't had, for years now. And I think, to Mike's credit, they've never fallen off the map. The only quarterback with a losing record of starting under him was Mitch Trubisky. Even that's what I'm saying. But Kenny Pickett, Devlin Hodges, Mason Rudolph, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and Ben Roethlisberger, and now Aaron Rodgers, all those guys, even Charlie Batch and Byron Leftwich, they all got winning records when they play under Mike Tomlin. And I think that, hey, it's just like they've been going at this search for a while. Kenny Pickett was a miss. And now it's like this year's not looking great for a quarterback class. So I think he's like, you know what? I'm a respectfully bow out, figure some things out, move wherever else in the country, and then figure out, do I want to come back to this coaching thing fresh?
Stay up to date all year on the Pittsburgh Steelers by subscribing to Locked On Steelers on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports today. Coming up, the Eagles are in the market for a new OC. Before we get to that, the Thunder looked for their first win over the Spurs this season. The divisional round is coming up, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts. Whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching, every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. The Thunder took their first win of the season over San Antonio.
The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the San Antonio Spurs for the first time all season long. SGA had 30 points in 3 quarters. The Thunder got back to business, dominating in the paint. Their point of attack defense was much crisper. You saw Chet Holmgren protect the paint on the defensive end. You saw J-Dub, SGA, and everyone involved get to the rim offensively for OKC. The three-point shooting made enough timely threes to really make the difference in this one, and OKC got the win over San Antonio. But despite this blowout win for OKC, it doesn't wipe away the 0-3 start against San Antonio. This is going to be a very tough series if it were to happen later on this season. In the postseason, there's still one more meeting between these two teams. It'll be a lot of fun to see how it goes down. Find out more on Locked On Thunder.
The Suns took the Heat down to the wire.
Miami Heat beat the Phoenix Suns in a big win, and more importantly, one of their star players finally shot his way out of his slump. I'm Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat. The Miami Heat beat the Phoenix Suns. They lead by 20 points at one point in this game. The Suns climb all the way back in this thing with offensive rebounds, second chance points in the paint in the third quarter. That was devastating and a disaster for the Heat, but the Heat retake the lead in the fourth quarter, and they do it because of Bam Adebayo, who's been struggling offensively, to say the least, over the last month and a half, and had gone 11 straight games without scoring 20 points. Well, not the case in this one. He scores 13 points alone in the fourth quarter to help lift the Miami Heat to a much-needed win. Bam, 2 huge three-pointers down the stretch of this one. Great defensive plays per usual for him, but yeah, a big Heat win here to get off the schneid a little bit, and as they return home to get a win that they can feel good about. But more importantly, if this is the version of Bam that they can get, or something close to this going forward, the Heat are starting to involve a few more ball screens in their offense that are going to that help get Bam going here. If this is more of the norm for Bam, then that should help the Heat kind of get back on track this season.
In Major League Baseball, the Cardinals traded 8-time All-Star and 10-time Gold Glove Award winner Nolan Arenado to the Diamondbacks.
Nolan Arenado has officially been acquired by the Arizona Diamondbacks in return for pitching prospect Jack Martinez, who will be going to St. Louis. Now, the Jack Martinez aspect of the trade has not been confirmed by the team. However, it has been reported by John Gambadoro to be the case. Arenado waived his full no-trade clause to facilitate this trade and will be entering the 7th of his 8-year contract with the Diamondbacks. He is going to be paid $16 million in 2026 and $15 million in 2027. The big question I have is how much of that money is being put up by the Diamondbacks. The Rockies are paying a portion of that, we already know, but the question is how much of it will the Cardinals be putting up? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to follow for more updates.
It's been a carousel of offensive coordinators in Philadelphia the last 4 years. 2 of them left for good reasons, 2 of them for not so good reasons. Kevin Patullo, the latest casualty in Philadelphia after an underwhelming offensive season and a first-round playoff exit at home as the defending Super Bowl champions. Louis DiBiase from Locked On Eagles joins me now. And Lou, the question I think that some Eagles fans are asking was this the right person to move on from if you're going to move on from a coach?
It's an interesting question to ask. I think Kevin Patullo clearly was the main issue in 2025. I've never seen somebody more lost calling plays on first and second down, calling plays in the second half of games. But you're right. I think the underlying issue why you mentioned there's been 4 different coordinators in 4 different years is that Nick Sirianni is not able to call plays. So when a offensive coordinator that calls plays gets a head coaching job, you have these down seasons where he's not able to overcome that loss, and neither is Jalen Hurts. So I think organizationally, the Eagles just might have an issue with, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts just won a Super Bowl, but they have these clear weaknesses that they haven't evolved, and that's why you get these seasons every other year. So the main question is, can those 2 evolve long-term, or is this the musical chairs game they're going to play every other season? How long will Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie be okay with that?
What's interesting, too, is you juxtapose it with Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, 2 head coaches who have also had success, who have also won Super Bowls, but you go down the line, you live off that Super Bowl, and you have to constantly shuffle coordinators in and out because you're not a play caller on one side of the ball. It becomes difficult here. And so I do think that raises questions. You mentioned Jalen Hurts, though, and I made the joke on socials, Lou. It's a different phrasing, but the old idiom is if you meet a jerk in the morning, you met a jerk. If you meet a jerk all day, you're the jerk. And I just wonder if Jalen Hurts is the jerk here, not because he's a jerk, but because he has to play such a specific style that it really makes it difficult for this team to find. Like, you have to find the right offensive coordinator because Jalen Hurts is a very specific type of quarterback.
Yeah, and look, he's somebody that you can win a championship with. Like, those are obvious strengths. The mobility, the clutch play. He has evolved, I think, his game over the years, but you're right. He also has a very specific skill set, kind of like a Russell Wilson in his early years, a Cam Newton that didn't really grow. And those players didn't age well into their 30s. And Jalen Hurts is coming up on 28 years old, and he already this year showed regressions from a mobility perspective. So I think this time around, whoever the play caller coordinator is, they can't pick it based on maximizing Jalen's strengths. They need to pick somebody that can evolve Jalen's game further, if that is possible, if you believe he can do that inside the pocket. Because, Peter, when that mobility does go away, he can't be a Russell Wilson in his 30s where it's deep ball or nothing. He needs to learn to throw with anticipation over the middle. So for me, my priority, if I'm picking a coordinator for the Eagles in 2026, it's all about how do I push Jalen Hurts out of his comfort zone, and then he sinks or swim. If he can't evolve, then you find a new quarterback in a couple years. And if he does evolve, great, because that extension question is coming. They need to get those cap hits down, and Jalen Hurts, that contract question is coming soon. So that, to me, would be the priority when making this decision.
There are contract questions all over this roster because the way that Howie Roseman built it is he preemptively kicks the can down the road. He didn't do it year by year. He said, there's going to be a problem later, and that's a later problem, and we'll deal with it. The name right now on everyone's lips when it comes to big money problems in Philadelphia is A.J. Brown. And his future with the team left after the playoff game against the 49ers, did not speak to the media, basically threw up the deuces and said, I'll see you later. Now, Tyreek Hill did a similar thing last year, and guess what? He played for the Miami Dolphins this past season. But that has led to a lot of speculation, Lou, about his future in Philadelphia. What do you think that future is?
I think he's an Eagle in 2026. I don't think Howie Roseman is in the business, even though I blame A.J. Brown for a lot of the drama that was caused this year. I think the Eagles moved heaven and earth in the second half of the season to make him happy, to make him a priority and get him to even 1,000 yards. But even with the nuisance he can be at times, I don't think Howie Roseman's in the business of getting rid of elite players that are still in their prime at a very important position when, again, you have a up and down offensive scheme every year and a quarterback that's reliant on these kind of players that can't carry you in the passing game. So I just think eating a $43 million dead cap to downgrade your wide receiver position to get maybe like a second, or I mean, you're not going to get a Micah Parsons level value, right? That Green Bay gave up. So if you do, okay, now I'm listening, but I just don't see any avenue where that's a smart decision. I think you just deal with the distraction that he can be. And I think you're a worse football team without AJ Brown, even as annoying as he can be sometimes.
Stay up to date all year on the Philadelphia Eagles by subscribing to Locked On Eagles on your favorite podcast app. Coming up, Anthony Davis is hurt again. Anthony Davis will be sidelined for at least 6 weeks as he recovers from ligament damage in his left hand. Incredible. He's hurt again. Locked On Mavs host Nick Angstad, who will never know peace, tries to explain what's going on and what the Mavericks should do with Davis, even if he does return this season.
Yeah, right after that, Anthony Davis, the report came out that Shams said he's going to need surgery. Anthony Davis says lies. And then now the report we know coming from the Mavericks and Shams says he is going to have surgery. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the trade, landscape and market being back open for him. We'll also want to talk about Rich Paul's comments about the Mavs getting hit by traffic and like by not trading him. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's start here. So I keep doing this. It feels like I'm doing like an episode of a serial TV show or something like that. When last we saw Anthony Davis in the reports and the rumors, Shams Charania had reported that he was going to get surgery, and then Anthony Davis replied to everybody that he could that was saying that he was going to be out for the season, that says no, lies, don't believe the things that you see reported, don't believe the stuff you see on this app. Then Mark Stein
he needed to drop an elf meme though. You sit
on the throne of lies. And then we had the Mark Stein report that said that he was going to be that there's optimism Anthony Davis could return some point in March, even if he is forced to undergo surgery on his left hand. So he kind of even pulled it back, said, hey, he's not even sure if he's going to have surgery. He may come back. Then now we have this report from Shams, and then the Mavericks dropped their report and their actual injury update press release that said, Dallas Mavericks forward center Anthony Davis met with his physician today and underwent a medical evaluation of his left hand. He does not require surgery and is expected to heal from the injury in approximately 6 weeks. The team will continue to monitor his progress and provide updates as appropriate. Have you seen the Muppet Christmas Carol where at the end they're like trying to figure out, like Gonzo goes, and Tiny Tim, who did not die at the end of the movie, feels like that kind of moment. Anthony Davis, who will not require surgery. And so now this opens up a lot for the Dallas Mavericks because a trade could still be back on. Shams had that report earlier where he said fascinating development. The Mavs are still seeking trade offers and are still talking to teams about Anthony Davis. He's going to come back. He's expected to come back this season now. And him not having surgery opens the doors back up. I thought maybe we had closed this, and now it is no longer closed.
Yeah, first I just want to say I'm fatigued by it. I'm just so tired of the story. Like, can we be done with it?
We're not going to be. It's going to keep going until either they trade him or he gets shut down for the season. That's literally the only two options, because other than that, it's going to keep going.
And I just want to remind people, this is part of the Anthony Davis experience. Like, I mean, this is part of it. This is part of the clutch experience too. Like, it's going to, I mean, I think this is a Mavs clutch thing that's happening behind the scenes right now. I think it's, this day is, I mean, it's a crazy thing. Like, I feel like we're kind of numb to it because of everything we went through as Mavs fans over the last, 12 months. But like, if any other team had this as their superstar player, $50+ million player that is like in the same day, that's like surgery, out for the year for the team, he's on Twitter saying lies, then it's like, well, wait, is he having, and then the team releases, and then Shams is like, well, renewed trade interest, and it's just like, whoa, and then it's like capped off at the end of the night. I was telling you before, I texted somebody in the Mavs front office and was like, hey, is there any update on AD, like surgery, no surgery? I'm talking on the show tonight. I want to have something. And it was basically the Mavs are going to release something in, official thing in very soon, and or when they're ready, and then it came out very soon of like, hey, the Mavs, and even the wording in that press release was like, and after 6 weeks, expect expectations for him to be healed in 6 weeks,
and is expected to heal from the injury, not expected to be healed, like expected to heal, like he's like it's Wolverine and he's got some kind of like timeline,
yeah,
with where the adamantium works, but usually like it's the report is he'll be reevaluated. They're saying no, like he is going to heal. This wording I think is very specific. We're big on this. We like to read between lines and read between words on how things are worded, especially reports, but PR statements as well, because the reason why he didn't give you that, like the person in the front office didn't give you that statement, is because they were still workshopping it probably to try and figure out exactly what they wanted to say so that other teams can read it and be like, well, they expect him to be back and to be healed. Like he's expected to come back at a certain point. So I guess we can still talk about a trade for him.
Almost all of those press releases are always reevaluated in blank amount of time. And I don't know, even off the top of my head, I don't know if I've ever seen one outside of like an extreme injury of like an ACL or something like that. He's expected to be fully healed for training camp next year. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen one like this that's like a 6 week time frame, like something that's not out for the year. That's like he's expected to be fully healed within 6 weeks. That's like, hey, everybody around the league, he's going to be healed and ready to play.
Have you? You're a communications master. I'm sure you talk about this, like the positive language. Yeah. In things like this, like you don't want to do like he'll be reevaluated. That's not a positive word, right? That's a yield. Like that's a yellow, yield word. Healed from it is a green, right? That's not a red where it's like we'll decide his future in 6 weeks, right? Like that's a completely different one if you wanted to do that.
Healed.
And finally, Mike Tomlin has made a career off staying above 500, and so did his quarterbacks. Well, almost. The only quarterback to boast a losing record under Tomlin is Mitch Trubisky, who finished just 3-9 with the Black and Gold Brigade. This goes for any number of games, by the way. No other QB, no matter how much or how little action they saw, finished under 500 with Coach T. Apologies to Trubisky, but that's almost as impressive for Pittsburgh as it is sad for the former second overall pick. And look, the Packers lost to the Bears this week. I had to get a little jab in there somewhere. Coming up, the 49ers injury report keeps growing. Do they have any chance to knock off the Seahawks in the divisional round? The answer is yes. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.